everyone. Today we're going to be talking about prefixes. So once again, these are going to be the portion of a word that starts out a word. So they're not necessarily as important as suffixes in that they're not going to be able to direct where that combining form or that root is going to go, but it's going to be important for altering that meaning. So a prefix is added at the beginning of a word to change the meaning of a word or to create a new word. Not all words will have a prefix, but many of them do. And a prefix can be added to a root, a combining form, or a suffix. So like the prefix of ab uh, means away from. So abnormal means away from the norm or away from normal, not normal. Generally, prefixes are going to be followed by a hyphen when written alone, but the hyphen is not used when it's part of a word. So if you're writing a prefix alone, it'll look like whatever the prefix is. So if it's dis, like on the screen, dys, there's a hyphen afterward. If we were to make a prefix like re, then it would look like that, re dash. If it's written in a word, it'd be dysphagia, or something in a more common type of wording would be reuse. So we don't put the hyphen in it, and you'll see that on the next couple of screens. I'm not going to read through all of the different prefixes. You can read them on your own. I'm going to highlight a couple of them that are going to be fairly common or have some confusing bits to them. So if we're looking at these, you can see all of these. Anti, against, same with contra. So both of these, depending on when you're actually going to be using them, is going to be meaning against. You may see anti, which is different from anti. So ante means before. So ante, like antechamber, is the chamber before you go into something, or the first chamber. Versus anti-chamber would be you're against chambers. It's a weird way of thinking about these things. But so that's one that we should make sure. Remember to think about the difference between Breaky and Brady. Very easy to say the differences. So, but they can be very often confused. Some of these, one thing to think about is dia or dia, depending on how you end up actually pronouncing it. Oftentimes it's going to be pronounced dia as opposed to dia, but you may see pronunciation both ways. More. This, remember, if you have a PS, then you say the S, so it's pseudo. Um, this is also a fairly common point of confusion, either sim or sin. Because it's the MN thing, then it makes it so that it's difficult. Fortunately, it either both of the cases mean together or with. There are some prefixes that have more than one meaning. So to make sure that you have the correct meaning of that prefix, you need to make sure that it fits within the context of the medical word. For example, dis can mean bad, difficult, painful, or abnormal. It doesn't mean that in every term. So dyspnea means difficulty breathing. Dysmenorrhea means painful menstruation, not difficulty menstruating or bad menstruation. Similar types of things, but painful menstruation. So some prefixes that have more than one meaning, once again, these, you can see them. A lot of these meanings also are kind of interchangeable. So like by, uh, can mean two or double. Uh, it's kind of an awkward type of term. So, like if you think about bi-weekly, it can either mean twice a week or every other week. You know, that's what it means by either two or double. With hyper, I don't actually necessarily, so it can mean above and then beyond or excessive. If you think about it from the point of view of like a scale, then it's pretty easy to remember the hyper versus hypo. So even if it is above, you're thinking about it on a scale. So either it's above or the top part of the scale, or beyond that part of the scale, or an excessive amount compared to normal. So that's one of the ways of thinking about hyper hypo. There are a couple different situations where where biology will use both pre and pro. It makes it really super complicated in different types of times. Going back to other different types of things, super, supra, those are going to be very similarly used to the hyper, just different Latin, Greek business. Next up are going to be some prefixes that are going to be pertaining to position or placement. Almost all of these are going to be in reference to the anatomical position as kind of the base type of position. I'm going to show you an example of anatomical position. It doesn't necessarily quite work out that well because of just the model that I have. But if you think about this Lego creature as an anatomical position, ignore this arm just for the moment. And this is supposed to be an open hand. So open hand going down, arms down at your side, vaguely along the lines of this guy. So sometimes these different types of position or placement refers from being away from, so away from the midline, away from the center, away from the body, before, after, above, below. So it all vaguely depends on the context of whatever medical terminology that you're actually using. As we ended up mentioning in, or in a as I mentioned in a video a while ago, ad is one of those major types of issues. Here's that anti as opposed to anti, so before or forward, so anteflexion, antebrachial is where you'll see it, so antebrachial is before or forward of the brachial portion. Circum and peri, that's once again a Greek-Latin change. A lot of these are actually going to have Greek Latin changes. So epi and ad, you'll see similar types of things. So if you think about like epinephrine, nephros being the Greek for the kidney versus, or an epi meaning on top of or above, versus adrenaline, which is renal being the kidney in Latin, ad being the prefix meaning up, above or on top of. Once again, it's kind of a pain in the butt that we have to deal with both Greek and Latin. It'd make a lot more sense if we ended up not, but this is the joy of biology, so yay. Here's some more. Sometimes you'll have prefixes that will pertain to certain numbers or amounts of things. They can have meanings like both, 10, double, half, many, none. And once again, you kind of have to look at the actual term. So we do have the bi, die type of issue again. With bi, you might actually see it as bis as well. So like dis. And then we also have some of our SI prefixes like centi, deca, milli, nano, multi, all of those different types of things. There are going to be a couple different situations where you will see similar types of things with multi and poly. That's once again a Latin Greek change. Here's more. Uh, Oftentimes, it's pronounced semi, so like semi-lunar, versus hemi, which is half. So both of them are half. So it's an awkward thing to think about, semi versus hemi. Once again, Latin Greek. And that is all that I have about prefixes. If you have any questions, come see me. See you later.